運が悪かったんだよ、お前らは。
We're going to, we did initiate this one earlier also. We're gonna go actually resolve it now. Grab this key while I'm here. I'll explain that later. Don't you fucking walk away from me, you bastards. You absolute bastards. More keys. No. Yeah, this alleyway. So if you remember this guy... So this was probably a bigger deal in the PS2 game, where navigating the city was a little bit, you know, PS2 jank. And having a, like, alleyway of the city being blocked off to you unless you initiated a fight with what might have been a difficult enemy, or needing to pay a toll every time you try and walk past it, was probably a reasonably big deal with the way that game was designed. And again, notice the combat has to load into a totally different location before it can actually initiate. Because the engine was not adequately prepared to load in a combat encounter in the specific alleyway that we were in. They didn't model it. They didn't model it to be capable of that. Bottle of mystery liquid. Have a drink, fucker. I learned something today. Merry Christmas, motherfucker. You can cleanly see the part where this story ended in the PS2 game versus this additional shit they added for Kiwami. I was a different man. Tokyo was a different city. Tokyo is always a different city. God fucking damn it. Majima! I don't know if fighting him actually saved time or not. Now I'm all dead. Now I'm all dead and shit. So this is once again one of those sub-stories that is like so simplistic that you can tell like, oh yeah, they just made this as part of a janky little PS2 game. But it is actually a sub-story that keeps coming back throughout the series. There's like a sequel to this in almost every game. So literally, just walk up to someone, dialogue, fight them, end of story. Like no fuss, no muss, no shenanigans. It has that feel of like it really has that feel of like this is the first game that they've made. And they don't know what works, and they don't know what's actually, like, more interesting in terms of, like, side content that rewards exploration and investment and all that. They're just like, hey, if you go to this part of the city during this part of the game, you'll run into some guy. And then he'll say like, hey, we fight now. Do fight? Yeah, fight do. And then you beat him up.
Oi.
What I should mention is the way the dragon style works in this game is when you don't have a full enough heat bar, which is like the special meter in a fighting game, by the way. I guess I never explained that. The heat meter is like the special meter in a fighting game. It fills up whenever you land a hit on enemies. And then once it's full up, you can do a special move, which is the heat actions, which are contextual, context-sensitive special attacks that do extra damage and have a fun, violent animation associated with them. When you have an emptied out heat gauge like this, the dragon style is very slow, like this. But when you get your heat gauge filled up to the point where you can do a heat action, you'll start attacking much more quickly. And I think that's really interesting because your default attacks and animations in Yakuza 1 were about that slow. And it was in Yakuza 2 with like the next, evolution of the combat they made, they sped up his animations and the combat felt a lot faster and a lot smoother. They kind of have the best of both worlds in this game, where if you don't have enough heat, you're all slow, but if you build up enough heat, you have that really good, fast, like, kinesthetically satisfying speed to Kiryu's attack animations. So you're retaining that, you know, underdeveloped jank that the original PS2 game had with these slow combat animations. But then you're still providing a good, satisfying, fun combat experience by having faster, more fluid combat animations as a reward for having, building up and maintaining a heat bar. And it's a trade-off of whether or not you want to be able to keep those fast animations or do a special attack to do additional damage. Children's Park is here. Okay. Goodness gracious, Fiddly D. And it does go a little bit faster if I do just fight him legit. And I'm pretty sure that if you beat him enough times, he does fuck off. But I don't know how that works if I've already filled out... like, it's not even worth talking about at this time. At this time. God damn it. Okay, so another, what I call a carryover event is about to trigger. A resource reuse event. We're just going to ignore that and do this guy's sub-story, though. So that's one of the things about the Yakuza, is despite the fact they are, you know, analogous to the Mafia and are absolutely, you know, organized crime, comparing them to a business, like, structured, like Viacom and stuff like that, is like, more legit. Like, obviously, all organized crime is effectively a business based on, you know, providing services that are illegal, and because it's illegal, it's regulated, and thus it's dominated by violence and exploitation. But more so than other examples, the Yakuza are a lot more out in the open and legitimized by the culture that they're living in compared to, say, the Mafia. The Yakuza, remember at the beginning of the game, Kiryu was wearing the pin on his lapel that showed what Yakuza family he was a part of. And businessmen, salarymen in Japan have those as part of the uniform that associates them with their place of business. So, like, if you work for Sony in Japan, you probably have and work in one of their buildings, you probably have a pin that shows that you work for Sony, or a division of Sony. And the Yakuza operate the same way. They have business, like, identification, they have business cards, they have office locations that openly list themselves as being office locations for a Yakuza family associated group. They operate, at least, I don't know how it is now in the year of our Lord 2020, but traditionally speaking, and definitely at the time of this game's release, the Yakuza were not an open secret. They were just in the open. They were a part of, like, not every day, but they were an open part of urban life in Japan. Of course, the game series, being ostensibly about the Yakuza, does and media in general, honestly, does usually present a romanticized version of Yakuza organizations. Like, obviously, as with any criminal organization, the Yakuza are fuckers, right? They're just a bunch of greedy, violent fuckers, and they exploit and kill people, and all they care about is getting money and doing whatever they gotta do in order to get ahead in life, and they're based on that machoism culture of, like, quote-unquote respect and street rep and all that jazz. But there is that romanticized ideal, again, not unlike the Mafia, where they have a quote-unquote code of standard operating procedure. You know, they have a code of ethics. The old school, quote-unquote, traditional romanticized view of Yakuza. And, I mean, you see that in any kind of media depicting the Yakuza, particularly because if you present the Yakuza in an unfavorable light in Japan, then the Yakuza are going to get pissed off and fucking kill you, which they did to a... there is a famous example of a director who had a film that presented the Yakuza ostensibly as they were, in a non-romanticized, you know, warts and all light. And that pissed the Yakuza off, and they threatened him and assaulted him, and eventually, because he didn't back down, they killed him. Well, officially, the director committed suicide by jumping off of a building. Yeah. However, in terms of how the game presents them, the game is not authentic to reality. It is a fantastical shonen anime-esque representation of everyday life in Japan, let alone Japanese organized crime. There's you know, it exists as a story with characters who exist to service the themes of the story, more so than being actual representations of real people. There's a whole thing with, like, back tattoos, which I'm gonna get into when that becomes relevant. So, it's not like it's distasteful or anything like that, that the way they present the Yakuza in these games is in a romanticized light. Especially considering they certainly don't shy away from the violence and illegal crime times that do happen. as a part of the Yakuza organization. It is one of those things, though, where, like, back, you know, the Yakuza are supposed to have an honor code, and it's like, no. I mean, like, no. So this is another sub-story that, was a lot more simple, even than it is in this game, in the original PS2 game. But they expanded on it to make it, I guess, again, just feel like it wasn't a total waste of time. Because this one's less simple than even a lot of other ones. Because, again, pay attention to what happens in the sub-story. So this is why I picked up a couple of pocket tissues earlier. In the original game, you just give him one pocket tissue, and then the sub-story is over. It's literally just walk up to a location, initiate dialogue, hand over inventory item, sub-story over. Like, if you're not already carrying a pocket tissue, then the dialogue would initiate, and then you would have to go off and get a pocket tissue. But then you come back and you give them the pocket tissue, and then the sub-story is over. So in Kiwami, to make it more extreme, now you have to go out and give them even more pocket tissues after the first one. It feels like they wanted to, like, they had to keep to what the sub-story was, but it also felt like, man, just a whole sub-story where you just give them one pocket tissue and that's it? That just feels like so nothing, right? So maybe they felt like they needed to add more. And maybe it's also sort of like a Resident Evil remake kind of thing, where they're playing on your expectations, where if you played the original game, they know you played the original game, and they know you came here with a pocket tissue ready to go. So they go, haha, fuck you, you thought it was over? No, you gotta go get 2 more pocket tissues. They're subverting my expectations. I forgot that I needed 5 pocket tissues total for this. No, I think it's 6. Gosh. Yeah, so I think it's a combination of multiple things of, like, trying to make the sub-story feel like it's not a waste of time. And their method of doing that was by making it waste even more time than it did originally. I don't know. It's a cute enough idea to, like, tricked you, gotta go get more pocket tissues. But then it just feels like, you know, a joke that goes on for a little bit too long. I don't know. In the original game, it felt like it was quaint, but it felt like charming. Like, you're running into these barkers all over the game as you're running around the city, and they're shoving pocket tissues into your inventory, So you're probably going to end up with a pocket tissue in your inventory, even if you don't want one. So then you run into this guy who's like, I need a pocket tissue. And you're like, hey, I have a pocket tissue. And it feels almost like, you know, and like something that you didn't think. I don't know. Like, how am I trying to describe it? It's like one of those things where it's two things in the game world interacting with each other in a way you might not have anticipated of it. I'm buying these for later. Since I'm here. Now we're gonna go all the way back.